At the beginning of the story, Rio is thinking about all the people she doesn't like. She makes a list of people she wants to get rid of from her life. This list includes strangers who bother her on the bus or train. This includes a salesman at a store who always speaks rudely to her. There's also her boss who never recognizes her hard work. She doesn't have a good relationship with anyone at the office. Everyone keeps their distance from her. She also includes Craig, the man she spent one night with but then stopped talking to. She also includes her sister Seren on the list because she ignores her. Their mother abandoned them years ago, so her mother is also on her list. She remembers Julia, a girl from school who made her feel very lonely. She wants to include her father in the list, but he is already ill and on the verge of death. She feels very lonely and is also taking care of her sick father. She visits her father in the hospital and believes he is dead. For a moment, she is convinced that he is dead. But then her father moves, laughs, and says it was a joke. He tells her to be strong and not let people treat her badly. Later, her father starts coughing violently, but Rio is unable to call the nurse because of her shame. She feels ashamed of herself. Because of her silence, her father dies. Her sister Seren arrives late for her father's funeral. She behaves strangely around Rio, as if she's uncomfortable. Craig, the same man who stopped talking to her, also arrives but avoids talking to Rio. The person running the funeral repeatedly mispronounces Rio's name, which offends him. Things get worse when Julia arrives, the same girl who treated him badly earlier. She's now back from a stay out of town. Rio's aunt doesn't recognize Julia and thinks she's just another employee. Rio tries to talk to Craig again, but he immediately leaves. Julia pretends she doesn't know Rio. Her sister Seren smiles and acts overly friendly to Julia, which makes Rio feel even more awkward. Things get worse that same day when Seren reveals that she wants to sell her house and buy a new one in France. Julia is given the responsibility of selling the house, meaning she will act as the real estate agent. Seren convinces Rio that he must let go of his past and attend the school reunion. When Rio returns home, it feels quiet and cold. He finds an old hair turban, which reminds him of his old school days. After all this, he decides to start afresh, return to work, and show his true potential. When she returns to the office, no one seems to care. Everyone acts as if she's not there. She musters up the courage to approach her boss, Norman. Rio tells him she wants to apply for the junior reporter position. Norman had previously given her hope that one day she could advance beyond being a secretary. Norman fakes a smile and calls her sweet names, as if to put her down. He says that if she truly wants to be a reporter, she'll have to be strong. Rio says she's willing to learn the hard way, but Norman insultingly tells her to throw away her resume, meaning she won't get a chance. Rio angrily returns to her desk. There, she sees a new person, AJ. AJ speaks to her very politely, which makes Rio feel better for a while, but her happiness is short-lived. AJ gets the job Rio wanted. It turns out that AJ's mother is known to Norman, so she gets the job without any effort. Rio protests with anger and shock, but no one listens to her. Now, a dangerous thought comes to her mind. She wants to hurt AJ. In a fit of rage, she picks up a knife and chases after AJ, but accidentally cuts her hand. AJ sees her covered in blood and asks Rio for her work email. AJ suspects that Rio might be angry with her because of this job. AJ tells her to leave, after which Rio goes out to walk her dog, Tink. Just then, Rio sees a large billboard bearing Julia's picture, now working as a real estate agent. Rio receives a message from her sister, Seren, announcing the sale of the house. Before Rio can react, her dog, Tink, suddenly runs out into the street and is hit by a car. A lock of her hair falls out of Rio's head after the accident, indicating her shock and stress. Heartbroken, she gets drunk and buries her beloved dog, Tink. Then, in anger and grief, she sends a voice message to her sister, Seren, stating that she still lives in the house, so Julia has no right to sell it. Now, Rio is determined to tell everyone directly. She decides to go to the school reunion to confront Julia. When she arrives, the atmosphere is very complicated and chaotic. Julia mocks Rio and tells everyone that he's crazy. Julia even blames Rio for all her problems. All of Julia's friends stand up for her, making Rio feel inferior and alone again, just like in school. She remembers that old night when Julia took off her fake hair in front of everyone at a school party, embarrassing her. As she angrily leaves, she overhears Julia lying to someone. Julia says she never did anything wrong to Rio, even though it was a blatant lie. People there push her away, and Rio, feeling very lost, leaves. As she runs, her hand catches the knife she brought with her, and terrifying thoughts begin to flood her mind. Just then, a drunk man approaches and accidentally urinates on Rio. The man laughs and says he didn't notice someone was standing there, as if he doesn't care. Rio angrily cuts off her shirt. When the man curses at her, Rio stabs him in a fit of rage. Standing over the man's body, she screams, "Are you looking at me now?" This means she's chosen the ultimate way to expose herself. Then suddenly, she realizes she's committed a grave crime. She drags the man's body to a nearby river and dumps it there to prevent any evidence from being found. When she returns home, people on the street shy away from her, seeing her terrified look. Upon reaching home, she stands in front of the mirror and screams at the top of her lungs, her mind filled with guilt, fear, and anger. The next day, when she wakes up, she goes to the mirror again. Now she feels as if her mind is deceiving her. She begins to hallucinate. Rio sees blood on her face. In the bathtub, her blood-stained clothes from the previous night are submerged in water. Nearby is the knife she used to kill the man. She picks up the bloody clothes and puts them in the laundry machine to wash, adding her own shirt to remove the evidence. Then her eyes fall on Tink's empty bed. She becomes sad. The room feels lonely again. Just then, the doorbell rings. She quickly puts on a gown and opens the door. Craig is standing at the door. He first comments on Rio's appearance, then says he wants to buy her father's old business. She says nothing and closes the door. Going inside, she puts the kettle on the stove to boil water and looks at the basket containing the knife. A flurry of thoughts rush through her mind. She drops the knife into the boiling water. While she's on the bus to the newspaper office, she sees Julia's face on another billboard. A crowd of people has gathered at the riverbank where she left the body. She feels very nervous. At the office, she searches for news related to the scene of the incident, but finds nothing. Her colleague AJ smiles and offers her tea. Just then, Norman arrives and asks the team for the main headlines of today's news. Everyone has boring ideas, like road repairs and reports on pigeons. Norman becomes frustrated and asks where Jeff is. Just then, Jeff comes running in and tells them that a body has been found in the canal. The entire office suddenly becomes alert and serious. It's done. Norman, now intrigued, asks Rio to make some tea. Jeff and Norman discuss what this news could mean. Rio suddenly blurts out that it was a murder and explains that it happened near Meadow Lane Lock. She says she heard people on the bus talking about the same thing. Jeff doesn't believe it, thinking it's just a rumor. Rio says the victim was stabbed. Jeff says it's just a rumor, not a certainty. AJ suggests that the rumor, whether true or false, should be investigated. Norman praises AJ's words, but forgets that Jeff had said the same thing earlier. Sometime later, Jeff returns with definitive information. A jogger found the body. The deceased is a young man in his 20s with 14 stab wounds. Rio is shocked to hear this, as she remembers something. Norman says that the person who did this is a monster. Jeff explains that the body's DNA has deteriorated due to being in water. Norman says that it's probably the work of a gang, and they need the dead man's identity and a statement from his family. A press conference is scheduled soon. Rio tries to peek into Jeff's notebook to see what's written there. A J sees her and asks what she's doing. Rio says she doesn't know how to read fast writing and reminds AJ that she's not a junior reporter. She explains that she just wanted to see if Jeff left anything important out. AJ asks her if she's feeling okay. Rio admits that she's a little disturbed or scared. AJ also agrees that this whole case is very disturbing. AJ says that whoever committed this murder, the police will definitely catch them. But Rio doesn't believe it. She mentions cases that haven't been solved yet. Still, AJ maintains hope that everything will be fine. He says that this case seems different from the others. Returning to her seat, Rio starts looking at people's posts on social media. Some people curse the killer, while others blame the victim himself. Rio becomes upset and uneasy after hearing these comments. Jeff calls Rio and asks where Norman is. She lies, saying Norman isn't at the office. Jeff explains that they now know the victim's name. His name was Ryan Lloyd. Rio pretends to tell Norman the name and quickly takes note. Then she goes straight to Norman and tells him that Ryan lived with his mother. She suggests they meet with the family to get a statement. Norman says Jeff should do it, but Rio insists it needs to be done immediately. She says the grieving mother would probably feel more comfortable with a female reporter. Norman agrees, but sends AJ with her for assistance. In the car, AJ apologizes for coming with her. Rio says it's okay. Everything's fine. AJ jokes that this job is much better than writing reports about pigeons. Rio turns serious and says, "Don't joke, someone died." Then she gently explains that both her father and her pet dog died recently. She finds it very difficult to talk about losing a loved one. AJ listens carefully and says he's sorry Rio had to go through so much. AJ says he would have broken down if he were in that situation, but Rio seems very strong. He then asks again if she's really okay. Rio admits that she gets very angry sometimes, not always, but her emotions build up and then suddenly explode. AJ says it's perfectly normal. AJ explains that when her grandmother died, she hit her foot against the wall in anger, breaking her toe. Rio laughs and gently comforts her. She says, "Monster." The two arrive at Ryan Lloyd's house. A woman opens the door, but upon realizing they're from the Gazette newspaper, she starts to close it. Rio immediately stops her before the door closes. AJ speaks politely and explains why they've come. They're just here to understand Ryan's story. Rio also says they just want to understand what happened. After a little hesitation, the woman says they can come in for just 5 minutes. She offers them tea and begins to tell them about Ryan. She explains that Ryan didn't go out much and she liked that he stayed home. Ryan previously worked at a call center, but was later fired because he wasn't fit for the job. The woman's husband, Al, sits in a chair nearby, holding a bat, looking very stressed. AJ asks her what good things she remembers about Ryan. Rio pretends to go to the bathroom but sneaks into Ryan's room. Inside, she finds a personal envelope lying in the trash. Inside, the envelope was a legal document. The letter revealed a court restraining order against Ryan for harassment. The order stated that Ryan was not allowed to visit a man named Dave Ferris. Reading this, Rio smiles slightly and puts the letter back in the envelope. Just then, Ryan's father enters the room behind her. Rio quickly hides the envelope and leaves. She tells AJ that they should leave now. After getting in the car, Ryan shows AJ the letter and explains what she found inside the room. AJ is shocked. He angrily asks why Rio went into a dead man's room. He says that no matter how good or bad Ryan was, no one had the right to kill him. Rio doesn't care. She doesn't care. She says that all she needs is the truth. She jokingly says that if she publishes this big news first, Jeff will definitely be upset. The two then go to meet Dave Ferris, the man named in the letter. When they reveal that Ryan was murdered with a knife, Dave is shocked. Rio directly asks what Ryan did to him. She also says that until now, everyone was saying good things about Ryan. Dave laughs a little bitterly, as if he finds this absurd. He explains that Ryan used to do small things at first, like touching her belongings or sending her harassing online links. Gradually, Ryan's behavior became worse. Ryan spread lies that made Dave appear dangerous to children. The police even questioned him about his family photos. Dave says that even after Ryan lost his job, he continued to hang out at his office and home. Dave says he should have complained earlier, but Ryan intimidated him so much that he felt helpless. Rio listens to him carefully. She understands the fear and helplessness Dave has been going through. Rio softly says that Ryan was truly a bad person. When she says she knows how things affect a person, Dave listens and says that Ryan is dead now and he can't hurt anyone. Returning to the car, Rio tells AJ that he knows the truth. This isn't a story about a good son. His phone rings with a message from Seren. Seren tells him that Julia is coming to see the house and that Rio shouldn't be there. Rio, furious, tells AJ to leave. Arriving home, she cleans the remaining blood from the bathtub and takes a blood-stained knife from a pot of boiling water. The door opens and Julia enters the house with another woman, Stella. Stella, looking at the house, says it looks a bit old and dilapidated. Julia is surprised to see Rio there, and Rio makes the excuse of cleaning. Julia taunts Rio that he shouldn't be there and should leave. Stella says that the company might have an opportunity in interior design work because of Julia. Julia tells Rio, "We're leaving now, and we'll see you soon." As she leaves, Julia once again makes fun of the smell in the house. Rio returns to the office of her newspaper, the Kumamoto Gazette. Norman calls her into his office. Jeff is already there, and he is angry about Rio following him. Rio lies, saying she thought Jeff was unable to handle the situation and that her phone signal was poor. Rio tells Norman that they have real strong news. AJ agrees, saying the story is truly fantastic. Rio admits they did a more in-depth investigation than necessary. Jeff tries to stop her from speaking, but Norman listens attentively. Norman reads the report and suggests there might be something wrong with the story, reminding him that Ryan was actually the victim. Rio says the bottom line is that the truth matters, and if they don't publish it, another newspaper will. Hearing this, Norman agrees, saying Jeff will write the story, but Rio will get the credit and recognition. In the office, Norman asks Rio to go to the Bell Pub and praises her for her excellent work. Sitting in the pub, AJ asks if such outings are common, and Rio says she doesn't go out often. AJ praises her intelligence and wit, saying that teasing Jeff was a bonus. Norman jokingly says that all new hires have to sing karaoke, or they could lose their jobs. Norman asks Rio what song she sang when she was new. Rio says no one ever asked her. Rio goes to the bar to get a drink. No one pays attention to her, but then she gets one and sees Craig across the room. Nearby, a man was repeatedly harassing the bartender and forcing a drink. Just then, Craig arrives and says it's nice to see him. Rio also says she wants to talk to him. Craig starts talking about a business deal. Rio clearly admits she hasn't read it yet. Craig says it's no problem, there's no need to rush, it's all easy. Rio says she doesn't know if she can trust him, but she has his phone number. Afterward, she takes her drink and goes back to her table. She decides to sing karaoke. She goes on to sing Katy Perry's famous song, Roar. Everyone is delighted by her song, but Rio's mood suddenly changes when she sees the same police detectives who were at the river murder scene. The pub announcement lady says that the police want to speak to anyone who has any information about the case. In the washroom, Rio sees derogatory drawings and slurs about Ryan painted on the walls. These things seem to echo her own past suffering. She silently agrees with the insults. As Rio leaves, a female detective, Marina Farrow, enters the washroom. Back in the bar area, there's the same rude man who was harassing the bartender earlier. Rio suddenly remembers an old memory. She remembers that this is the same man who assaulted a nurse at the hospital when her father was dying. The rude man finally gets a drink and says something nasty and arrogant again. Rio says goodbye to her office colleagues and leaves. On her way out, another police detective stops her and advises that people should remain vigilant until the killer is caught. Rio simply says, "Okay," and walks on, her eyes fixed on the road. While walking, Rio sees another badass man. The expression on her face suddenly changes. Rio looks more dangerous. She ties her hair back and pulls the hood of a black hoodie over her head so no one will recognize her. She crosses the bridge and follows the man into a deserted, quiet street. The man is shouting loudly and threateningly at someone on the phone. When the man hangs up, Rio calls out to him and pretends she needs help. She tells him that her dog is lost and that she needs help finding it. Rio points to a nearby trash can and asks if the man could bend down and look. The man smiles, because he has some evil thoughts in his mind, but he bends down anyway. Rio immediately takes out her sharp knife. As soon as the man raises his head and asks what the dog's name is, Rio stabs him in the neck like lightning. The man falls to the ground, covered in blood, and Rio continues to. She stabs him in the chest several times. The man stares at her in fear, his eyes wide with terror. Rio stares at him with unblinking eyes. When the man dies and stops moving completely, Rio smiles softly. She slowly gets up and walks over to the dead man's body. In the next scene, she is outside the office of a place called Bagerton, where large posters of Julia are plastered on the walls and windows. Rio realizes that Julia is now the next name on his list. That is, her next target. The next day, Rio returns to the spot where she murdered the man. His body still lies there. Seeing this dead body, she begins to remember her past. She remembers how, during her school days, Julia was always hanging out with her friends, attracting everyone's attention. Julia used to laugh at Rio, spread false rumors about him, and make him feel as if he didn't exist. All those bad memories from school, every bad thing Julia did, all of them are still alive in Rio's mind. Neither the shame nor the pain goes away. Now, in the present, Rio follows Julia from a distance. She sees that Julia is still happy, confident, and successful. She has everything. Rio thinks Julia's life is absolutely perfect. A wonderful house, a good job, and many friends. Seeing all this, Rio's hatred for Julia grows even stronger. When Rio returns home, she sits at home and starts watching a crime TV show. While watching, she writes things down in a notebook. The list she makes includes realistic, practical steps, such as cleaning out the meat freezer and buying a plastic lid. She plans everything meticulously, just like the detectives on TV. Craig meets her on the street. He looks a little embarrassed and uncomfortable and says he needs to apologize for his past behavior. He says he'll run his father's business better now. She listens to him and then musters some courage. She invites Craig to dinner, pretending it's just to discuss work. Craig accepts her invitation. Now she feels more confident. She goes to a small shop and secretly slips the rude clerk's mobile phone into her drink. This act further boosts her confidence. Later, a little nervous, she calls Julia to arrange a time to photograph the house. Her voice shakes with fear and anxiety, but they make an appointment to meet the next evening. The next day, she brings coffee and breakfast to everyone at the office. She is happy, but becomes upset when she learns that she did not get credit for the report on Ryan Lloyd. She decides she needs to teach Jeff a lesson. She secretly puts a laxative in Jeff's drink to upset his stomach. AJ catches her doing this. AJ talks to her in a playful and teasing manner, making her laugh. But the situation changes when Ryan's mother suddenly arrives at the office. She angrily yells at both AJ and Rio for misusing her son's story. Jeff tries to calm her down, but Rio says Ryan wasn't innocent. Hearing this, the entire room falls silent. No one in the room supports her. Only AJ takes her side and gently asks if she's okay while everyone else considers her heartless. Later, she begins to feel normal and happy again. Jeff spends the entire day running to the restroom repeatedly because Rio had spiked his drink with a laxative. Rio is now ready for dinner with Craig. She looks absolutely beautiful, and AJ notices her. AJ asks her out on a date, but when Rio politely refuses, AJ's confidence is shattered. Craig arrives late at the restaurant for dinner. When he arrives, he only talks about work and business. Rio changes the topic so that the atmosphere doesn't feel like work, but rather like a real date. They laugh, eat, and enjoy the evening. Later in the evening, they get physical. The next morning, Rio's phone rings. The police ask her to come to the station. She's not in any trouble. The police simply want to question her as a witness, as she was present at the club the night the murder took place. The police believe her. The police sergeant speaks to her in a very gentle and friendly manner, which puts her at ease. She takes the opportunity to lie, saying that there was a large group of men there who were misbehaving and causing trouble. The conversation stops when the sergeant is called by his superior officer. The superior officer completely ignores Marina, a female detective present there. Rio notices this and begins to feel a sense of belonging towards Marina. The two talk quietly for a while. The interrogation doesn't last long. Then news of a second murder breaks. Fear and tension spread everywhere. Rio immediately cancels her scheduled meeting with Julia and hurries to the office. At the office, AJ notices that Rio is wearing the same clothes she wore yesterday. This look and attention from AJ makes Rio feel embarrassed and uncomfortable. Now that she has a free evening, she texts Craig. Craig responds politely but says he's busy meeting a new client. Rio decides to go anyway and goes to the meeting place. Upon arriving, she learns that the client Craig met with is Julia, leaving her heartbroken. Julia has already offered to buy the house and plans to renovate it and sell it. This angers Rio even more. When no one is looking, Rio steals Julia's mobile phone and secretly slashes her car's tire. She waits near her truck. When Craig leaves, Rio takes Julia into her car. She doesn't take Julia to her house, but instead brings her to hers. Rio lies about having a mold problem in the garage and takes Julia downstairs to show her. Julia follows him down to the basement. Once there, Rio tells her the truth. He explains that the people he killed were ruthless and caused pain, so he killed them. Julia panics and thinks Rio is mentally disturbed because of the house. Julia says she can keep the house, but Rio doesn't want the house. He wants an apology from Julia for the old-school misbehavior. Julia refuses to forgive. She doesn't believe she ever did anything wrong. She panics and tries to run away. A scuffle ensues between them. Rio hits her, and Julia falls to the ground. Rio stands over her, breathing deeply. Suddenly, Julia's eyes open, meaning she's alive. Meanwhile, Detective Marina Farrow also has her own secret list. The list includes all the people who annoy her in her daily life, like her talkative landlady, annoying co-workers, and those who overwork her. At the top of her list are criminals who think they can escape punishment. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Rio has Julia tied up in the basement. Rhiannon mocks Julia, but Julia remains calm even in anger. Julia tells her to forget the past and move on with her life. Rio, enraged, tries to hit Julia, but she fails. She runs away in despair, her heart pounding. Julia shouts after her, calling her a failure and a failure. Rio notices that she has lost more hair. Exhausted and frustrated, she goes to the construction site. There, she has sex with Craig. She then tells Craig to leave immediately and steals the recording from the office security camera. A short time later, while riding a bus, a man straddles her seat. Rio leans over him and touches him inappropriately. The man, alarmed, immediately changes seats. Returning to the office, Rio demands to be a junior reporter. She says she has a big story. Jeff objects. Norman gives her a chance to prove herself. She explains that if there's another kidnapping, it means a third person could be killed. AJ agrees and playfully teases her. He says the man who died last time was a very nasty and ruthless landlord. He thinks the killer might be cleaning up society by killing the wrong people. Rio is appalled by this idea, but she advises AJ to be cautious. Marina faces several difficulties at the police station. When she tries to express her opinion, her boss interrupts her. Her superior officer tells her to focus only on male suspects and gives her more work. Rio, who is Julia's assistant, Lucille, meets with her to help her find a reliable source for her report. She meets the girls involved in the missing person case. They don't seem to have any major problems in their lives. Everything seems normal. She's sad because she doesn't get what she expected, but the girls start to like her. One girl reveals that she too was once wronged, so she can understand Rio's feelings. They invite him to go out with them, which makes him emotional. At the police station, Marina continues to review CCTV footage. She finds footage of Julia pushing Rio. Another video shows Rio leaving before she told the police. Julia hasn't returned Marina's calls yet. This makes Marina suspicious. Rio goes to meet Julia's fiancé, Marcus. She doesn't see any conflict or tension between them, which upsets and annoys her. When Marcus leaves, she steals Julia's bottle of liquor. Her article is published, and Rio and AJ celebrate happily. But their mood is soured when Seren calls. Seren angrily informs them that a surveyor is coming. Rio quickly returns home and throws the person out, telling him that the house is not for sale. Later, she drinks the same stolen bottle of liquor. She visits Julia again and praises her article. Julia taunts her appearance and makeup, mocking her. Saddened, Rio changes her clothes and goes to meet AJ at a bar. Everything seems normal, but then Craig arrives and pretends to want help. AJ leaves without saying a word. She considers going to AJ's, but Marcus is drunk and she gets involved with him. Rio helps Marcus get home. Marcus tells Rio how badly Julia treats him, and Rio is confused. Rio checks her mobile and smiles at the messages. She then returns home and reads the same message aloud to Julia. In the message, Marcus writes that Julia is very controlling and pushy. Rio is happy that Julia's life isn't as perfect as it seemed, but when Julia starts crying, things change. Julia's tears reveal the truth. Marcus was the one doing the real abusing. Meanwhile, at the police station, Marina is reprimanded by her boss. The officer says there's no missing person report for Julia, while Rio's article states otherwise. Marina remembers the video and realizes she's found a crucial clue. Rio changes his kill list. Now, the list includes people who care about Julia. They are posting about him online, creating groups, and seem very upset. She adds herself to the list because she feels that she ruined Julia's life in her greed for reporting. Marina tells her boss that she is sure Rio is the murderer, but her superior disagrees. The superior believes that Marcus is the real suspect. He reveals that Marcus was at the bar the night another man, Mike Roberts, was killed. Meanwhile, AJ goes to investigate Rio's house. AJ had lied about being sick so he could rest and understand the situation. AJ appears polite but is deeply troubled. Hearing noises from inside the house, he thinks Craig might be there, so he immediately leaves. Inside, Julia breaks a plate in anger and attacks. Rio defends herself and knocks Julia unconscious. Julia starts bleeding, so Rio puts her in the bathtub and starts cleaning up the blood. Rio notices bruises on Julia's neck. She is not solely responsible for the situation. She says that holding on to past things is the biggest mistake. Marina finds Julia's car at the construction site. She is shocked when she learns that the place belongs to Rio. She asks for the camera recording, but finds out that it has been deleted. Craig is now also involved in the investigation and says he wants to talk to Rio. At home, Rio gets ready. Julia says she will help him with his makeup. Julia remembers how Marcus used to scold her when her makeup wasn't perfect. Julia wishes everything were different, and they had made up earlier. When Julia is applying makeup near Rio's eye, she has the opportunity to attack, but she doesn't. She wonders what life would be like if they were friends instead of enemies. Craig didn't cook a good meal, yet Rio pretends to like him. Her sole purpose is to keep Craig from telling anyone about his meeting with Julia. Upon returning to the office, Norman assigns both Rio and AJ to report on the search group. Their partner, Jeff, jokes around, but then reveals that he knows something bad about Rio. Jeff reveals that Marcus himself gave him this information. At the police station, Marina begins to believe very strange and unbelievable things. She now believes that Rio also killed her father and used the store. Her superior, now upset with Marina, tells her to stop speculating and focus solely on the missing person's case. The next day, everyone gathers to search for the missing person. Marina, Marcus, and Jeff are also there. Rio finds it difficult to concentrate on his work. Marina talks to Julia's co-workers and finds out about Rio and Julia's past relationship. Marina deliberately tries to provoke Rio in front of AJ, causing him to lose his temper or control. Just then, Rio receives a message from his sister, Seren, who says she's coming back and will sell the house at any cost. A short while later, Marcus takes Rio aside and accuses him of stealing something from his house. This is the secret Jeff wants to use to get him fired. Ajay witnesses the argument. He walks over and calmly asks Rio why he didn't tell him about his past relationship with Julia earlier. The pressure of the situation and the questions become too much, so Rio lashes out at AJ, calling him obsessive. AJ is hurt by her words but says nothing. Rio quickly leaves, unknown to her that AJ was just about to confess his love to her. Rio angrily follows Marcus out, a knife hidden in her pocket. She's about to attack him when Jeff spots her. As Jeff realizes Rio is the real killer, he runs away in fear. Rio runs after him, but Jeff is hit by a car while crossing the street and dies. Rio panics and considers throwing the knife away to prevent any evidence. Just then, her phone rings. It's a message from Marcus threatening her. Fearful and angry, Rio devises a plan. She goes to Julia and tells her they can change everything. She says that if they frame Marcus, they can both escape the case. Meanwhile, Marina interrogates Craig and discovers that Rio may be selling the house to someone who harassed him as a child. Something seems fishy, and when Craig is asked if Rio and Julia visited him that night, he hesitates. Marina senses something is being lied to, so she calls Sergeant Rory. She tries to go to Rio's house, but the sergeant says they can't without a warrant. Meanwhile, Rio and Julia arrive at Julia's newly completed flat to carry out their plan. Julia is confident their plan will succeed. The plan is that when the alarm goes off, Marcus will arrive, free Julia from the radiator, and Rio will call the police, making it appear as if he rescued Julia. Everything goes according to plan. Marcus arrives in a panic and cuts Julia's ropes with a knife. Rio immediately calls the police, But then Marcus's panic turns to jealousy. He angrily accuses Julia of having an affair with her kidnapper and then grabs her by the throat. Rio yells for him to stop and Julia speaks up. Julia clearly states that she no longer wants to have any relationship with Marcus. Marcus pretends to kill himself, but it doesn't affect anyone. Rio angrily pushes him away, and just then the police arrive and find Marcus lying dead. The police arrest them and take them in for questioning. Rio fears Julia might tell the truth. Marina suspects both of them. Both women tell the same false story. Marcus was the kidnapper and Rio saved Julia. The DI believes them and ignores Marina's suspicions. Rio remains calm, but when Marina provokes her emotionally, she becomes enraged. She angrily says that people ignore her, bully her, and now she wants revenge. Those words speak volumes. She cries out that she saved Julia. The DI defends Rio and releases the two women. Julia then leaves without a word. Later, Craig takes her home. On the way, they see Julia's house surrounded by media. AJ is there. He runs to Rio and hugs him. Rio apologizes and AJ says he really likes Rio. Rio is happy, but Craig interrupts. Returning home, Rio finds a parcel containing his father's ashes. Just then, there's a knock on the door. Julia is standing outside, a serious look on her face. She says she's upset because Rio killed Marcus. Rio promises she won't kill anyone again. Rio says Marcus probably died for the right thing. Julia thinks and nods in agreement, both feeling a little relieved. That night, they go to a club to celebrate, amid loud music and flashing lights. But Julia still harbors memories of Marcus, more than she realizes. Rio suggests she write a newspaper story about her experience. It might help ease her mind. Julia agrees, but there's still an awkward distance between them. At the club, when Rio jokingly mentions killing a drug dealer, Julia recoils uncomfortably. Both take drugs to forget everything and become completely intoxicated. Then, Craig joins them, and the atmosphere becomes uncontrollable, and the three grow closer. By morning, they watch the sunrise on the rooftop, and in that quiet moment, Rio scatters her father's ashes to the wind, feeling at peace for the first time. Now that Rio feels like she's become the person her father always wanted her to be, Rio confides in AJ that she's fallen in love with him. AJ responds by saying he feels the same way. But Rio is a little sad. She wants Julia to stay with her, but Julia gives a somewhat evasive answer. That same day, Julia goes to the newspaper office and gives an interview about her kidnapping. She reveals everything, how Rio behaved. Julia also admits that she understands Rio's pain to some extent, but this makes it uncomfortable for both of them. After the interview, Julia says she'll be back later, but she never returns. In other words, she disappears again. Later, Rio discovers that a large amount of money has been stolen from his bank account, which Julia herself withdrew. Rio is stunned by this, but AJ explains that Julia probably just needs some time. Meanwhile, Detective Marina is furious. She tears up the missing person posters, driven mad by the case. That same night, when Rio isn't home, Marina sneaks into his house and, while searching, finds the missing footage. The video clearly shows Rio slashing Julia's car tire, meaning she planned everything. Marina waits there, and when Rio returns home, they confront each other. Rio doesn't panic, knowing the video can't be legal evidence. It was taken illegally, but Marina refuses to give up. She insists that Rio's seemingly perfect life is a lie, and that one day she'll make a mistake, and she'll be ready. Rio decides to break up with her boyfriend, Craig, but Craig angrily threatens to tell the police if she doesn't give him her father's company. Rio, in anger and compulsion, hands over control of the company to him, but when AJ arrives, Rio forgets everything. AJ is happy to be single now. They spend the night together. The next morning, AJ receives information from the police. A photograph shows the knife used in the murders. AJ remembers seeing the same knife at Rio's house earlier in the day. He desperately searches for the knife, determined to find out the truth. When the pressure becomes too much, Rio breaks down and tells the truth. In a trembling voice, she says that she just wanted someone to pay attention to her, to see her, to believe her. She apologizes to AJ, telling him she will change, if only he doesn't leave her. But AJ is terrified. He calls her a monster and starts to leave. In anger and fear, Rio attacks him, once in the ribs, then in the neck. AJ falls into her arms, dying. Rio cries and tells herself, "I'm not a monster." And meanwhile, Seren comes to the door and calls out to her, signaling that everything is about to be revealed. The movie ends with this scene.